This year, the government is firmly focused on our economic rebuild from COVID, and central to our recovery, as we've often flagged, is addressing New Zealand's decade-long housing shortage and affordability issues. Today, we are at these recently completed modern state houses to talk about our new regional housing plan that sets out where the extra 8,000 state homes this government will build by June 2024 will be allocated. We'll focus on building more state homes in the regions where population growth has significantly exceeded new housing supply, leading to significant rent rises, housing shortages, and high levels of deprivation. As such, there will be a particular focus on Northland, Hamilton, Bay of Plenty, Gisborne, Napier, Hastings, Palmerston North, and Whanganui. Building more houses is a key part of our COVID economic recovery plan, adding an estimated $5 billion of economic stimulus, providing certainty to builders, plumbers, electricians, and other contractors, and creating jobs. We were conscious of the legacy of the GFC and have worked hard to avoid what we saw in that instance, where we simply weren't building the houses we needed, by bolstering the workforce, making apprenticeships free, and providing confidence to invest in infrastructure. Housing is one of New Zealand's toughest long-term problems. The current rate of housing price growth is unsustainable. First home buyers are being shut out, and rapid rises pose a risk to the long-term health of our economy. There are a range of causes for the current situation, including a lack of supply, low interest rates, the cost of building materials, and even the interface with councils. There is no silver bullet for fixing the housing crisis, but that is not a reason for inaction. It's a reason to tackle this issue on multiple fronts and on an ongoing basis. It will continue to take a concerted effort across the term. This government's housing plan over this term will target supply by addressing the underlying structural issues like complex planning laws and infrastructure investment. Act with urgency to tilt the field toward first home buyers and investment in new housing. And thirdly, as you've seen today, boost direct government building supply across all types of housing, from public and transitional housing through to affordable housing as well. Today, I want to not only, of course, outline the public housing program, I also want to foreshadow the timeframes for housing initiatives across particularly the first half of this year. By late February, we will have received and considered the advice the Finance Minister has sought from the Reserve Bank and Treasury on demand-side initiatives. Our actions will aim to, as I say, tilt the balance toward first home buyers and aim to take some of the heat out of the market. We will advance major RMA reforms this year. One of the major objectives here will be to address planning constraints to free up supply of housing. High-level decisions will be announced in February, with an exposure draft of the first bill aimed to be released in May. Also in May, the budget will contain further measures to address supply. The government cannot solve this problem alone. So in July, we'll reach an important deadline in the implementation of the National Policy Statement on Urban Development that requires more land to be freed up for housing. Local councils over decades have consistently under-delivered land for housing, and the National Policy Statement changes, including through intensification, is seeking to match the demand for housing with land availability. So those requirements for a stocktake, they kick in July. The economy has held up better than expected. However, it has exacerbated this long-term issue of housing affordability. Our decisions on the economy, particularly through COVID, they have been the right ones. They mean we have lower unemployment and higher growth than nearly every country we compare ourselves to. And had we not taken the steps we did, we would be standing here today with a very different set of problems on our hands. But nevertheless, we can't stand by while house prices increase, as I say, at the unsustainable rates that we saw in 2020. This year, we will advance a range of initiatives targeted at both supply and demand. None on their own will be a silver bullet, but collectively, they will move us to where we need to be if we're going to shift this decade-old problem. I'm going to hand over to Minister Woods to make a few points, and then we'll be happy to take your questions. You'll see I've got ministers with me to be able to pick up any of the specifics that you might want to drill into, particularly also on COVID-related matters.
Thank you, and thank you, Prime Minister. And it's fantastic to be here today. Like so many new Kāinga Ora developments when I visit it, seeing wonderful new units where there once previously stood one single family home, and we're seeing multiple units on this ground here, and they are warm, they're dry, and they are made for families and people to rebuild lives in. They're not just buildings, and these houses will be people's homes within a matter of days. In fact, prospective tenants will be shown through these homes tomorrow, and we expect tenants to be moving in next week. So people will begin making their life in this room in the not too distance. And we're incredibly proud that since November 2017, our government has delivered 4,759 newly built state houses, alongside a massive program of retrofits to support our vision that every New Zealander should live in a warm, healthy home. It's a massive task off the back of nearly a decade under National, when vast swathes of public housing was sold off from under New Zealanders and the ball was dropped on building new stock. And we've noted before that we would not have a register of people in need of public housing if there had been investment like we are now to increase state housing. We know there is a long way to go and that it will take time. But so far we have committed to and are on track to deliver over 18,000 public and transitional houses by 2024. The public housing plan that you're seeing today outlines our building intentions across New Zealand for those 6,000 public houses and 2,000 transitional housing places announced as part of our Budget 2020 package. It builds on the strong program we have underway, including Kāinga Ora's large-scale projects, which are laying significant infrastructure and enabling other market housing to be built. You'll see that the public housing plan identifies area of the country that will be a particular focus on building a strong pipeline of state housing. There are areas where the need for public housing is the greatest because, as the Prime Minister said, population growth has outstripped any housing development. This is the step change and approach required in these areas. And in some of these areas, we already have a comprehensive process in play through our place-based programs to identify what the housing needs are, the opportunities, and importantly, the partners to work with. And this doesn't mean that other centres are going to miss out, as there will be a sustained effort to add more housing in other parts of the country. Kāinga Ora will lead the delivery of the 8,000 new homes, working with iwi, Māori and community housing providers. They play a critical role in the delivery of public housing when they operate in areas where we don't, where Kāinga Ora doesn't, where they provide specialist housing services to groups of Māori or youth and to offer wraparound services. Investment in public housing pays enormous dividends in health and in social well-being in our communities. It creates jobs, it stimulates local economies, and it provides opportunities for our young people. And we have a significant program of work underway already in housing, and we're committed to keeping up that momentum.